Few people in television have done as much behind the scenes as Sara Gilbert, yet most only know her as the sharp, sarcastic Darlene from Roseanne. The reality of her life ran far deeper than that one role. She revived a dying sitcom, built a daytime institution from scratch, earned a degree from one of the most demanding universities in the world, and did all of it while carrying wounds the public never got to see. The painful truth is that Sara spent the better part of her life putting everyone else first. She saved careers, protected people she loved, and kept shows alive through impossible circumstances, all while quietly falling apart in ways she could not yet even put into words. This is her real story, and most people never saw it coming. Sara Gilbert entered the world on January 29, 1975, in Santa Monica, California, as Sarah Rebecca Beals. From her very first breath, expectation came with the territory. Her maternal grandfather was Harry Crane, a writer and co-creator of The Honeymooners, a sitcom that helped define American television. Her mother, Barbara, worked as a Hollywood producer and talent manager. The entertainment industry was not something Sara discovered. It was the water she was born into. But the pressure that would shape her most did not come from her grandfather or her mother. It came from her sister. Melissa Gilbert, Sara's older adopted sibling, was already a household name by the time Sara was old enough to understand what that meant. Melissa had played Laura Ingalls on Little House on the Prairie throughout the 1970s, and their brother Jonathan had appeared on that same show. So when a 6-year-old Sara stood watching Melissa receive a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, something shifted inside her. She looked up at her mother and announced she wanted to be an actress too. That single moment planted something that would never fully leave her. She was not just inspired. She was already measuring herself against a standard that most adults would find overwhelming. She started small, with a Kool-Aid commercial and a handful of TV movie appearances. Then in 1984, she made a quiet but telling decision. She dropped her birth name of Beals and took the last name Gilbert, anchoring herself to the family identity she had decided to claim. She was 9 years old. At 13, Sara walked into an audition for a new ABC sitcom called Roseanne and walked out with a role that would redefine her entire existence. She was cast as Darlene Connor, the sardonic, restless, deeply intelligent middle child of a working-class Illinois family. When the show premiered in 1988, it became a cultural phenomenon almost immediately. At its peak, it was one of the most watched programs in the country, and Sara's performance was central to why it worked as well as it did. What made that performance so powerful and so heartbreaking in hindsight was how little of it was fiction. Darlene pushed back against everything. She was never at ease in her own skin. She searched constantly for something she could not name, swinging between flashes of brilliance and stretches of quiet despair. Audiences saw a brilliantly written character. What they could not see was that the girl playing her was drawing from something very real and very private. Sara was beginning to understand that she was gay. In the Hollywood of the late 1980s and early 1990s, that was not something you could tell anyone, not your castmates, not your employers, not even yourself on most days. So she carried it alone. She showed up to set, poured her confusion and pain into a fictional teenager, and let America believe it was all just good acting. It was not. This chapter is the one most people either skip entirely or misunderstand, and it is perhaps the most important piece of the whole puzzle. While still a teenager on Roseanne, Sara began a real relationship with her co-star Johnny Galecki, who played her on-screen love interest David. By her own account, her feelings for him were genuine. She found him kind and sweet, and she was drawn to him. For a while, they tried to make it work. But something was wrong that she could not explain. Every time they were together romantically, a heaviness would settle over her that she did not know how to name. Johnny, being a perceptive and caring person, noticed and turned the blame inward. He assumed he was a problem. He had no way of knowing that Sara had not yet found the language for what she was feeling either. Eventually, she told him. She said that her sadness had nothing to do with him and everything to do with the fact that she was gay. Johnny's response was extraordinary. He offered her only love and protection. He kept her secret for years without ever making her feel like a burden for it. When Sara finally decided, more than 2 decades later, to share the story publicly, she called him first to ask permission. He told her he was proud of her and offered to sit beside her while she spoke. Meanwhile, all through this period, Sara was quietly doing something no other television star of her generation was attempting. She was going to college. Not community college. Not a correspondence program. Yale University. The Roseanne production team reworked their entire schedule to accommodate her. They moved the filming calendar earlier in the season, built a separate soundstage in New York, so she could shoot scenes without leaving Connecticut, and flew cast and crew out during her breaks. They did all of that because they valued her that much. She graduated in 1997 with honors, earning a degree in art with a concentration in photography. The same year, Roseanne aired its final episode. What followed Roseanne is a chapter that almost nobody talks about, and that silence is its own kind of story. Sara did not disappear entirely. She kept working, appearing in films like Poison Ivy with Drew Barrymore, riding in cars with Boys High Fidelity, and Light It Up. She picked up recurring roles on ER, 24, Will and Grace, and The Big Bang Theory, where she played scientist Leslie Winkle alongside her old friend Johnny Galecki. But nothing held. Nothing grew into something permanent or defining. For a woman of her drive and ability, that had to be a particular kind of painful. What Sara was actually doing during these years was something quieter and harder than chasing roles. She was building a real life. She entered a serious long-term relationship with television producer Allison Adler. Together they had 2 children, a son named Levi Hank born in 2004, and a daughter named Sawyer Jane born in 2007. They built a home and a family and a private world that Sara kept almost entirely away from public scrutiny. She and Allison were together for roughly 10 years. And for most of that time, Sara told no one outside her immediate circle. She did not come out publicly until 2010. 2010 was the year Sara Gilbert finally exhaled. She came out publicly, and she launched The Talk, both in the same season. The Talk was entirely her idea. She had been attending mothers' groups following Sawyer's birth and kept noticing the same thing. Women in those rooms were having conversations that were raw and funny and complicated and completely honest in ways that television had never quite managed to capture. She believed there was a show hiding inside that observation. She took the concept to CBS. On October 18, 2010, The Talk premiered with Sara co-hosting alongside Julie Chen, Sharon Osbourne, Aisha Tyler, and Cheryl Underwood. It worked immediately. The show won Daytime Emmy Awards and consistently drew more than 1 million viewers per episode. For the first time in her career, Sara had a platform she had built herself, a space where she could speak honestly and shape her own story. She used that platform. In 2013, she sat down on the show and walked the audience through the story of Johnny Galecki, her teenage confusion, the depression, and the secret she had carried for so long. Johnny sat nearby. It was one of the most openly vulnerable moments of her public life. And yet she admitted that even then, with a hit show and Emmy recognition and genuine power in the industry, she was still afraid. Talking about being gay still felt dangerous to her career. After everything she had built, the fear had not left. It had just gotten quieter. She left The Talk in August 2019 after 9 years. At her final taping, her daughter Sawyer performed an original song called Mama that she had written herself. The studio was in tears. Sara said she was leaving for new opportunities. That was true, but it was equally true that her marriage had collapsed. Her most beloved professional project had been torn apart by scandal, and she was in the middle of rebuilding her entire career from the ground up. She needed the exit. In 2018, Roseanne came back, and Sara was one of the main forces behind it. She served as executive producer and poured herself into reuniting the original cast and making the revival feel worthy of what the original show had meant to American families. It worked. The revival debuted to enormous ratings and became the top-rated broadcast show of the season. Sara had pulled it off. Then Roseanne Barr posted a racist tweet. On May 29, 2018, Barr published a comment about Valerie Jarrett, a black woman who had served as a senior advisor to President Obama. The backlash was swift and severe. ABC canceled the show within hours. Sara responded almost immediately with a public statement condemning the comments as abhorrent and making clear they did not represent the cast or crew. She said she stood fully behind the network's decision. Barr publicly accused Sara of destroying the show and destroying her life. She reached for a comparison to a villain from Silence of the Lambs. She said that Sara had betrayed her and then used her talk show platform to perform outrage about it. This was a woman Sara had spent her formative teenage years working beside, a woman whose show had launched everything Sara had. And that same woman was now holding Sara responsible for the fallout from her own actions. Rather than walk away, Sara did something that surprised everyone. She pitched a spinoff. She proposed continuing the story with the full cast minus Barr, killing off the Roseanne character in the opening episode, and building something new from what remained. She called it The Conners. ABC greenlit it. The show premiered in October 2018, with the Roseanne character dying of an accidental opioid overdose. Sara was now both the lead actress and the executive producer of a show she had essentially willed into existence from the wreckage of another. The Conners ran for 7 seasons, ending in 2025. It was a genuine success by most measures, but it never matched the electricity of the original revival. Sara carried that gap with her the entire time. While all of this was unfolding in public, Sara's personal life was quietly coming apart at the seams. After her relationship with Allison Adler ended in 2011, Sara began seeing Linda Perry, the singer and songwriter who had fronted the band for Non-Blondes. Linda proposed in 2013 using a series of T-shirts that spelled out the question. They married in 2014, and in February 2015, Sara gave birth to their son Rhodes Emilio Gilbert Perry. For a stretch, life looked genuinely good. They released a children's album together called Dear Sounds in 2015. They had a blended family of 3 kids. Sara spoke warmly and openly about what their life together meant to her. By August 2019, the marriage was over. Sara filed for legal separation in December that year, citing irreconcilable differences. The divorce took 5 more years to finalize. It concluded quietly, with both parents agreeing to co-parent Rhodes alongside Sara's older 2 children. In a single 6-month window in 2019, Sara lost 3 of the biggest anchors in her life simultaneously. She left the talk after 9 years. Her marriage fell apart, and she was still managing the ongoing wreckage of the Roseanne cancellation while trying to keep the Conners alive and growing. Everything, all at once, in the same season. Most people know one piece of that year. Very few have ever seen all 3 losses together and understood what that combination must have felt like. She had spent her entire adult life constructing something solid, a career, a show, a family, an identity. And within a matter of months, major part of all of it crumbled at the same time, and she kept showing up to work. The part of Sara Gilbert's story that almost never gets discussed is also the part that explains everything else. Sara spent her life being the one who held things together for other people. She kept the Roseanne revival from falling apart. She rescued the Conners from the rubble. She handed CBS a fully formed hit show with The Talk. She shielded Johnny Galecki from pain during her own private crisis as a teenager. She co-parented through 2 separations with care and composure. She kept her children sheltered even as her professional world kept catching fire. By almost any measure, she is someone who holds things together. But the tragedy underneath all of that is that very little of it was ever truly for her. The 6-year-old who decided she wanted to be an actress because she watched her sister get a star. The teenager who hid who she was because the industry made clear there would be a cost for telling the truth. The grown woman who had won Emmys and built television institutions and still felt her heart race at the thought of talking openly about being gay. She performed stability her entire life. She absorbed the cost of everything around her. She rebuilt again and again, without ever stopping to ask whether the wreckage was hers to carry in the first place. The question that nobody has ever properly asked is a simple one. What did all of that actually cost Sara Gilbert? The Conners wrapped in 2025 after 7 seasons. Sara was a star and a producer until the final frame. She has 3 children. She co-parents with both former partners. She runs her own production company. Her net worth sits at an estimated $30 million. She holds 2 Emmy nominations and 1 Daytime Emmy win. Her career has now spanned nearly 4 decades. By every external measure, she is a success story. But Sara Gilbert's story was never really about success in the way Hollywood defines it. It is about what it takes to grow up gay inside an industry that treated that truth as a liability. It is about what it costs a person to spend their teenage years performing for millions while hiding something fundamental about who they are. It is about a woman who built remarkable things, watched major pieces of them fall away, and kept going without ever making her pain the centerpiece of the narrative. She never staged a breakdown for the cameras. She never published a book that would have made her millions and destroyed several reputations. She just worked. She rebuilt. She showed up. Whether that makes her story inspiring or heartbreaking probably depends on the day you read it. It might be both at once. Sara Gilbert is 50 years old, and the full weight of what she has carried is only now becoming visible. Behind the Emmys and the ratings and the television history was a woman who gave an enormous amount of herself to everyone around her, often at her own expense, and who somehow kept finding reasons to keep going anyway.